in here, this is a panel about the, what was the name? The future of Agile software development. What we're going to do is we're going to have a first round where each of the panelists are going to talk about this topic, and after that, we're going to have another round of 1 minute for them to, say something about what the other said and those kind of things. And then we're going to start with questions and answers. And well, that's the format we're going to use. So as I said, the topic is the future of Agile software development. So I will throw the question to start, and Rebecca, if it's okay, you can start first, okay?
Sure.
Okay. let me first, say the question, introduce you, and then you can start.
Okay.
So as I said, the main topic is the future of Agile software development. So I'd like to know what you think about that. Will the Agile practices be the common and the main ones used in the software development someday? And if so, at what degree, and what will happen after that? So that's the question. Now, Rebecca Wilsbrook is going to talk about it, and she's best known as the design geek who invented responsibility-driven design and the X-driven meme, like test-driven development, domain-driven development, and so on. She's keen about team effectiveness, communicating complex requirements, software quality, agile QA, pragmatic test-driven development, and patterns and practices for architecting and reducing risk on agile software, on agile projects and programs. And the most important thing is that she's a slow jogger. So Rebecca, your time.
I'm going to go jogging today. Okay. So how long do I have? Yeah.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. I'll try to do it in less than 2 minutes. I want to tell a story. I was on the boat in Norway when XP was invented. Alistair Coburn invited a number of us to go on that boat. And when XP practices were there, Kent, Beck and Ron, they were basically wanting to have something that would catch people, extreme programming, that would catch their attention. And that they would brand it so that people could actually do quality related software development. And it was a great idea. It put together many of the practices that we had been doing in Smalltalk community. 2 years later, Microsoft came out with Windows XP, and then no one could find XP again. So one of the things that I think to think about is that a lot of the practices, people are doing mob programming these days. They're doing, lean they're doing continuous deployment, but there really is this core set of technical practices that we have, and we need to keep pushing. I think that a lot of people doing Agile are only focusing on the cadence of delivery. And so the future of Agile software design and development is really going to take off when we really think about, the design and development practices as being something that really elevate business agility. So I don't think that it is going to become widespread. I'll make that controversial statement, because it's just going to become normal practices for some. Okay, I think I heard that a little alarm. Okay.
Yeah. It's not too loud. Yeah. Thank you, Rebecca. Nice. Okay, so now Diego, it's your turn. Let me introduce you. Well, he has more than 20 years of experience in software development. In 2005, he founded Grupo Esfera, dedicated to software development and training. He's also a graduate professor at the National University of 3 de Febrero and a postgraduate professor at the Argentine Catholic University. He has a software engineering from the University of Buenos Aires and a master's in software engineering management from the Carnegie Mellon, and is doing a doctorate in computer science at the University of La Plata. He's an active participant in the Agile community. He has several times co-organized the Agiles conference, and he's also co-author of the book Construcción de Software, Una Mirada Ágil. So Diego, now your time.
Thank you, Hernan. Thank you, Rebecca, for starting this panel. I agree with everything Rebecca said, so this is a poor starting point. I will add that I agree that in the future, these practices that we share, the technical and the rest, the organizational practices, are going to be widespread. But at the same time, I think we're going to be losing, and some of that we're seeing already, part of the awareness or the consciousness of the impact that we have in the world as practitioners doing software development in a world that has software everywhere. And I think part of what agility brought us is this perspective of the impact that we have on the world, on other people, on the products that we create, of the quality of those products through our design, through our decisions in requirements and design specifically in architecture and all the practices that we do. And so one of the things I foresee as an issue there is that we lose part of that awareness, part of that consciousness, and sort of do the things that we've been taught to do by someone else who couldn't quite convey the purpose or the forms, and lose the ability to review that. And I think that's something that we brought up many times in the community, and I think we're a very strong community. At the same time, we have that duality in terms of agility for the world, for other stuff, non-software, and that agility for software, which is where it began, or where we connect with the work. And I think our challenge there is improving our practice in terms of improving feedback loops in design, in development, in production environments, in conversations, in requirements definitions, and all of that, maintaining this strong community to do great things, to create and learn. Thank you.
Just on time. Great. Thank you, Diego. Okay, Sandro, is your turn now. So Sandro Mancuso is co-founder of Codurance, author of The Software Craftsman, and founder of the London Software Craftsmanship Community. Sandro, 2 minutes.
So if you could just say, I don't think that there is a single future for Agile. I think that Agile, as it's been happening for the past 20 years, there will be multiple threads, and all those threads, there will have more threads, and some of those threads will keep evolving, right? So as you could just say a single thing, but I can focus on the one that is a bit dear to me, and I think that that's where it's not there yet. So this is related to the thing that I was showing my last slide in my presentation just before this panel. So the alignment between business and technology is not as close as we think it is today, even with using all the Agile methodologies and stuff. So the way that I'm seeing things is in the product space, there is a product roadmap, there is a lot of design thinking and user research, and so there's a whole product strategy that goes on. And then those people go and create their roadmaps and milestones and stuff. And then they decide to think about epics and stuff. And then at that point, they have a prioritized backlog. So all of that is happening. And then that's when technology comes in. We normally tend to focus. That's what I see most of the organization. Again, I'm not talking about the exceptional cases here. I'm seeing what I see mostly. The technical team will come in once the backlog is already prioritized and their visibility is the top level, the items at the top of the backlog. And then their technical work, their technical strategy is based on those items. And then they have 2 weeks on average to get that done. And the focus becomes in getting that done. But and then as they iterate, the business gets the feedback and they have the opportunity to rejuggle the backlog. So this is what I see mostly in the wild. And we keep creating technical debt, because what I don't see is while the business is calibrating their product strategy and rethinking about which features they're going to do, we are running out of time. We don't have technical strategy at the large. So we do at the small, but we don't do at the large, just to support the product design.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Sandro. Thank you very much. So Carlos, is your turn. Carlos is the author of the first book on TDD in Spanish, founder and CEO of Lean Mind, and veteran member of the Agile community in Spain. So Carlos, 2 minutes.
Hello. First of all, thank you for having me. This is a pleasure. It's my honor to be here, and also a challenge with such a group of people. It's very nice that we are in a Zoom room together. This is not a webinar, so everybody can may potentially jump in. This is very cool. I see the people that created Agile, like Rebecca and the other people, they came up together with a set of principles and values, and they embraced them. And from them, they have been experimenting and they have been adapting, which is, to me, that's agility. You adapt to the situation that you are facing. And in the future, I believe we are going to do the same. So technology is changing, the hype, the trends, the technology is having a huge impact on the world. And I agree that we are not being very mainstream, but there are some people doing agile things. And I think in the future will be the same. There will be people experimenting, coming up with new techniques, new approaches, new methods. But we still will be embracing this change, the values, the principles. So I'm not really scared because there's nothing to lose. Because in my opinion, Agile didn't ever win the battle. It's not mainstream. All the people say they are doing Agile, but we know they are not. And in the future, new challenges will come, and we will see what to do.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. You had 15 seconds left, but who cares? This is like a panel where the presidents are, debating, and you have 15 seconds more, 1 minute more. But anyway, sorry. So now the second round, Rebecca, you have 1 minute if you want to add something else.
So it's interesting that Carlos said that people, Agile is mainstream. I work part-time for the Agile Alliance as experience report director, as you know. And one of the things that we've been hearing lately is that sometimes you go to big companies and they're having Agile backlash. They're saying, oh, Agile has failed us. And that's just something to be very aware of, because while we're in our technical practices that we know work, in this larger context, people who are just doing it, I'm going to say big Agile in a rote way, are probably not going to get the benefits that we envisioned long ago. And so there's this backlash. I don't want to have to write tests. I don't want to have to Agile, all these stand-up meetings and all these planning meetings. Anyway, just something to be aware of.
Okay, thank you. Diego, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just want to bring up something that Carlos said. It's an honor to be here, and thanking for this opportunity of sharing. It's very important. I'll pick up on something that Rebecca brought up too. I also think that it's very important to be aware of the impact that practice, and I might say malpractice in the way that it's performed, brings not only bad name to Agile and burning out people and being used to oppress and, I don't know, create bad environments for work, but also it is something that we need to reflect on in terms of how do we conduct ourselves when we are asked to help? How do we help avoid that? For instance, not proposing high discipline practices in terms of Ron Jeffries' definition, right? The thing that doesn't come so naturally, or how we work towards that, so that even if we're not there when we go, some of the stuff we brought in have taken root with the people we work with. That's something that came up this week in the talk. So that's something to take care of, how we proceed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Diego. So Sandro, your turn.
So I think that one of the issues, I want you to piggyback on what Rebecca was saying, because I see that a lot. So working with different clients, people reject Agile. In fact, we start not using that word anymore, because everything that becomes very, very popular, there is a lot of Chinese whisper. So the interpretation changes as the wider it spreads, the more people understand that in a different way. And I believe that certain practices, so because one of the is a bless and a curse at the same time. Because for example, for me, one of the issues that we have today is we mix the mindset with practices. And then people reject the practice. They tried some practice and they didn't like, and they are throwing the mindset away. So, but at the same time, without prescribing certain practices at the beginning, maybe like, or ways of working like Scrum, or even the extreme programming practices, would be very difficult to actually create a wider adoption. But again, people today associate the mindset to either iterative way of working or TDD. And I think that's what an issue.
Okay, thank you. Carlos?
I like this question by Diego, like, what can we do about the future, and how are we going to stand, how are we going to show up for the people to be agile or to embrace agile? And I agree with Sandro in his presentation before. We need more pragmatism. It's not that we should do Scrum or Kanban or TDD. Perhaps in certain environments, like Ken Beck said in his interview when he was working at Facebook, they couldn't do TDD in certain scenarios just because the production environment is so huge. There's no way you can test certain things in a closed and small feedback loop, but you can do some other techniques. So for me, pragmatism and context, and it's all about bridging this gap between business and tech. That is the reason why I understand people gather in 2000 to sign up the manifesto to bridge the gap.
Okay, thank you.
We haven't done so yet.
Okay, so it looks like instead of talking about the future, we should be talking about the present. Looks like that. So, so how we're going to continue? For the people that is here in the meeting, if you want to make questions, just go to the raise hand option and raise your hand. And I will, there is, every time you raise your hand, it's going to show up here in my participants window. And or also, if you want, you can write it in the chat. You can do the question in Spanish or in English, the one that you prefer the most. No Portuguese, because only Sandro is gonna know that and understand that. But anyway, so I was thinking about that. Rebecca made a point, and also Sandro, that currently, even though Agile is well known, it is not really practiced correctly or as we would like. So what can we do about it? Is my question, and then we go to the other people, to the other assistants. Does somebody want to answer that? No? Diego? Okay.
I think that we have to accept that we do not control everyone else's practice. We can only control our practice, but we can work to make our practice impeccable, so that, as an example, as some of the masters have taught us and shown us, Carlos was quoting Ken Beck a few minutes ago, and I think Sandro brought something up that's very important too, which is how we name the things we do. Sometimes it's better that we show how we do things correctly, following the principles, even though we are maybe actually practicing a specific way of working, like doing continuous integration or doing TDD, but maybe that's not the way we present that to people. Alistair Coburn once said that you can package some knowledge that you have in a higher stage on shoe form. So from shoe Harry, so you might be working at ha in your practice, but when you need to explain it, or when you need to set it up for someone else to practice, you might encode that in a form that is more accessible for those people. And I think that's a whole space for us to improve, being impeccable and working to provide tips and ways of approaching that are suitable for other people. Thank you. Go on, Rebecca.
Okay, Rebecca?
So I'm going to be a little controversial now, just because I want to disagree with somebody about something.
Cool.
When I talk about design, people used to say to me, I had a lot of patience because I wanted everyone, even a beginner, to understand the thinking of a sophisticated object designer. I think that Shuha Ri has gotten a bad rap because people don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They're just told, just do this. And for me, I'm a pragmatic tester, which means that if I check my code in at the end of the day and it has tests, how I got there is just fine, as long as it has a representative set of tests. This blindly following something is not the way people learn. They do katas, but that's 30 minutes. So I'm just going to say, I do give people more credit. Here's the practice. Here's one way to do it. Here's another way to do it. Figure out what works for you, but let's have this outcome. We want to have tests when we check code in. So.
Cool. Diego, do you want to say something about it?
Yes, one thing I agree completely. I think what Rebecca brought up is that you can present at a high level two shoes for the thing. You know, I practice Aikido, where Shuhari comes from. It's very nice to see that one instructor will show you one technique and another instructor will show you another technique for the same movement, for the same defense, for the same way of doing the things. And the interesting thing is they have to be aligned on the purpose. If they're telling you different things, you won't understand. But if they can pinpoint the different forms, they can show you the difference. Okay, so you can see it, because a lot of what they do, you don't see. So for me, the purpose has to be clear, point one, so they understand the why, particularly in the West, that's an important thing. Maybe in the East, it's not the same. And they have to be precise on the shoe. What I meant by packaging in shoe is not disguising for people who don't understand, but is choosing a language that makes sense for them and pinpointing the stuff that's going to help them do take the initial steps. So I really resonate with that, but I wanted to clarify. I didn't mean like disguising or simplifying.
Diego, before we go to the questions, because Ernesto raised the hand, also Juan, could you made a concrete example of what you said? Because I lost, I lost the last part. Yeah, no problem.
Sorry. No, what I meant is you could say, for instance, you want a software example, right? Not an Aikido.
Yeah. Software,
okay. Yeah. I was tempted.
You can open your, IntelliJ also and show us some Java code if you want.
Yeah, right.
No, just kidding.
Of course, yeah, of course not. For an example for me would be, you might say the purpose of this is guide for TDD. You might say the purpose of this is guide the process, but also you need to have your tests that give you the safety net that at the end of the day you need to have, as Rebecca said. So you could say, if it gets too hard for you to do TDD on this part in this context, you might say, okay, I will have my a posteriori test. So I will add my test later, or I will make sure that I have someone working with me in a pair to make sure that there are many eyes on that. But the purpose there is to guide me through the design and to get the test there when I commit. Okay, so you're saying what the purpose is, you're saying why the technique helps you, it guides you, it has an advantage, but at the same time you're saying if you cannot get that, or if you prefer this other stuff, you can get that this other way, but you have to articulate all of that. You cannot just say TDD is this, you cannot just say the purpose is this, you have to do all of that for the alternatives. That's what I mean, and that's not so easy sometimes to do.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Sandro.
Yeah, I just would like to add a few things, because the original question was what can we do today, right? So
yeah,
and it's related to the practice as well. I think that this is one thing that in the craftsmanship world we try to correct a bit, not to the greater success that I wanted, but I spent quite a few years of my time trying to detach extreme programming from craftsmanship, because as extreme programming didn't become as popular as Scrum in the Agile world, the craftsmanship movements pushed, I think the craftsmanship movement pushed extreme programming far more than the Agile movement. But there is also a danger when we were pushing the craftsmanship mindset, which is not that different from the Agile mindset, I made a conscious effort of detaching the two. Because for me, there is a difference between an ideology, a mindset of what you want to achieve, and the practices that we have. Although I understand that XP is not just the 13 practices, it's also a mindset. There are values, there are 5 values, and there are so on and so forth. But like, for me, this is a thing that we could correct potentially, is devaluing it's not devaluing the practices, but not making the practice, like Scrum is Agile or XP or something similar to what Diego mentioned, Rebecca touched on that as well. So I think that we should try to make sure that we don't keep just prescribing those practices and detach them from the mindset. Because although I love TDD, and most of the people that know a bit of my work know that I've been a big advocate, I wish I was not doing TDD in a few years' time and we had invented. So I always say that good practices are only good until we find better ones to replace them.
Okay, cool. Great. So I think it's time for the first question from the audience. Ernesto?
Hi, Hernan. Hi, Diego. Another
Hey.
member of the panel. I have to make a comment and then a question. So when Agile started growing, it gained acceptance from the developer community in an effort for improve their practice, everything, and in a hope to try to impact the way that the organizations make the way of work and to deliver value. And we try to grow up with improving practice, technical, and how to organize the work. But what I'm seeing, and we spoke about it, Hernan, 3 years ago, is that the technical community currently is moving further, going away from Agile, feeling that they not having a place there, and they prefer to choose their own spaces rather to be part of the Agile community. We are talking about this is still valid, but perhaps the focus that we are doing to Agile software development has not enough visibility amongst the rest of the Agile community, the Agile family or Agile environment. So the technical community believes that, okay, there is no more Agile software development, so we need to focus. I focus not in the Agile as a whole, but I'm going to focus in my language. I focus in my cloud, but not in a wide understanding of how to improve the technical, because the Agile techniques are wide, not just focused on a single language. But what is happening is now we are creating a new silos. That's the current status that I'm seeing. So what you can see about this, and perhaps we can discuss this today at the Future of the Community meeting in the afternoon. Thank you.
Okay, so does somebody want to comment on that? Yes, Sandro.
Yeah, so it is so cool you said that, because like for me the biggest point is that the technical community is moving away from Agile. I would even go further. Or is it Agile that is moving away from the tech community? Right, so because like, for example, people like myself that joined that fell in love with Agile in the early days, there would be absolutely no reason whatsoever for us to create a new movement called software craftsmanship. Zero need. Craftsmanship was only born because we were disappointed. We felt that Agile, the way that was organically growing, was moving away from the tech side, and we wanted to remain on the technical space. And that's why we grabbed extreme programming as one of our core set of practices, and they became, and XP became the heart of software craftsmanship. But we felt that the two ways, Agile was moving away, and we end up moving away. But so moving forward, I know that Rebecca wants to jump in. Some of us tried to bring the two together again, and we spent a few years doing that. I believe that moving forward, this is this is not going to happen. And to be fair, it's probably better that we stop fighting, or there's no argument anymore, but the Agile evolves in the way that it is, but the tech evolves side by side, but they are in harmony. But trying to unify again, I cannot see that happen.
Okay, Rebecca?
So that's actually interesting, because I actually think the domain-driven design community is in exactly the same boat, as you will, and I've been spending a lot of time with the domain-driven design community and working on design heuristics. This is a pitch to come to my talk tomorrow. But the point is, and I'm still writing patterns still exist. But the point is that without some sense of what we have in common, and I've been trying to make these bridges between communities, then someone who is new, and I saw this question about junior programmers, won't know a path. So if you come in from the domain-driven design thing, you learn this new language, and then you have to figure out what that means because no one else understands it. So there's this danger, if you will, if you go your own way, that we'll still need people who are bridging and explaining, because practices come from many places. And yeah, they didn't just come from XP, as you're rightly saying, and the domain-driven design has got some very good ideas, but they're now mixed up with event source architectures. And so it's like, it's getting messy. And I'll just stop with that.
Okay. Somebody wants to add something else to that? Okay, Diego. No pressure, just
Very short. I want to bring up something that resonates with me from what Sandro and Rebecca brought up, which is there are some issues of branding here going around. So the DevOps movement, for instance, is something that worked on that too, and creating its own name, the way Agile did that to
and
improve the experience of people.
microservices, yes.
Exactly, and all. Yeah, sorry, yeah, great. So what I wanted to say is that I think what Rebecca and Sandro brought up, I think I agree more with Rebecca in some point that I really like to continue bridging communities. It's a very interesting thing to bring up language from another community and to bring to a new community the findings on that. So exploring and bridging is something that I think we have to keep doing. And at the same time, what Rebecca brought up about the affinity of what we have in common is something that goes back to the roots, to the principles, to some of the ethics that are going around, some of the principles that align everything here. And that's why that's more than just software and more than just people. So I think to focus on that will keep us together, but still takes a lot of work. And maybe doing conferences side by side is something better than not finding your place in any one of them. So there are problems. I agree with Sandro that it's not easy to do. It's not easy to satisfy everyone.
yes, Sandro.
I just want to clarify one thing. So what I was referring to is that what I lost hope was to have a single community, or let's say, go back to the Agile community, try to reshape the Agile community so that they start paying attention of things that they stopped paying attention, or things that they are currently not paying attention. This is what I don't have. But at no point I mentioned that we should not bridge. So I see value of Agile keep going as they are, because they are tackling, they are evolving in a direction that the craftsmanship community is not. So that DevOps is not, that patterns is not, that DDD is not. So there is value in bringing them together. What I said, I just want to clarify what I don't have hopes, and I think that this would be the wrong thing anyway, is to have a single community that would become the central source of knowledge in all directions.
Cool.
May I say something as well?
Yes, of course, Carlos.
Yeah.
You were quiet for a long time, so now it's your turn. 10 minutes for you.
I believe we are having this battle in every company, in every team that we are. And I believe we have the potential to change things. I think the reason we are two separate groups is because the technical people don't care enough about the business and the needs of the people running the business, and the other way around, business people don't want to care about the technical stuff. So the first step we can take to change things is inside our own organization. Care more about the people. What are their needs that are not covered? How can you help them understand you and the other way around? And for this, I believe we need more soft skills, the real skills, and the willingness to be closer to each other. So there is no outside entity that is going to come and say you are going to unite. It's about us.
Cool. So thank you, Ernesto. It was a great question. So now, Juan, your turn.
Oh, thank you. Glad to see so many familiar faces. My question might be taking this dialogue in a different direction. I was thinking in these very large consultancy companies that has been, not recently, but constantly entering the Agile space, and now they are offering these Agile consulting services to very large organizations. And typically these very large organizations tend to buy services from these large consultancy companies. However, the type of Agile transformation that this Agile consultancy is selling, it's mainly oriented to transform processes and offering coaching and things like that. How do you see the future of this thing that is currently going on? Do you see these dynamics continuing in the future? And if so, what will be the impact in Agile? Thank you, guys.
Cool. Who wants to start?
So I can potentially.
Good. Go ahead.
Well, good to see you again, Juan. I think that it is now, after 20 years, it's easy for us to point the fingers at the big consultancy selling all those large things. But that, as Rebecca may correct my recollection, but that started within the Agile community. It was the heart of Agile community that created the certifications, that created those programs to certify people and to sell those projects in that way. What we see today is just an escalation of what some of the people that started the Agile movement created. We're just seeing that at a large scale. So for me, if the Agile community wants that, first of all, either they say, you know what, it is what it is, and we are fine with that because we are part of that machinery. We are all selling ourselves in a certain way, maybe in a smaller scale or a larger scale, or we want to criticize that. But if they want to criticize, they have some more homework to do as well to clean their own house.
Good. Somebody else wants to add something to that? No? Okay, so let me ask you one question from the chat, one from Esteban Galeano. He says, what could be done to better promote Agile practices with junior programmers, which would be ultimately the ones practicing 10 years from now and are usually more interested in technology and not in practices? Rebecca?
Yeah, so I look at universities that actually do have, like XP Lab in Brazil, that I think that academics should not, and as Hernan knows, you should not get away with just, having them come out of school and not knowing both practices and technology. And if you start with that, that's a good thing. But if I have young programmers starting a team, I would involve them in not just implementing something, but understanding what we're doing as we're doing it. So, it's not like we have design sessions separately or business meetings separately. So I kind of like the idea where, the mob programming, where we're all working together. So we're understanding the technical practices, that's fun, but we're also having the business value and the business person involved with us. So those are some ways to get junior programmers. Don't just have them do tasks, but be part of a team and understand design and understand business things. And if you don't do that, then you're going to get people that are just only comfortable in technology.
Good. Diego, Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing to add. I think in some spaces, teachers don't have the industry experience to actually convey good practice. So maybe one thing to think about is to, just came to my mind, is to invite practitioners to some of that, even for junior people, because usually we invite people for senior students to get more of a feel of the world, you know. But maybe we could invite practitioners to code with the junior people. So that's something to.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, something that is working very well for us is the apprenticeship program. So taking graduates and interns and people that are starting, and just because they get to see and to practice the same things that we do, they develop this taste for the practices and the values, and they liked it. So what people need, we all need, is references, is models, role models. And today, most people are thinking of Facebook as a role model, or Netflix, and that has a good point, and but also some disadvantages. Like not everybody has the same challenges and the same architecture and the same issues.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. An apprenticeship program is very good. We have one too, and I also agree that people learn by copying. That's so. Our examples, our designs have to be, good for them to learn. Yeah. And anyway, so I go to another question in the chat. It's in Spanish, so it's gonna be difficult to do this. And then we go to you, Luri. Give me 1 second. So the question is, how can we change the organization mindset, and the directors of the organization for them to invest and give time and resources for the implementation team to do better agile practices? And yeah, that's mostly the question. I don't know if I did a good job translating it. So mainly the question is, how can we change the mindset of the directors and the organizations to give more time and resources to practice more agile techniques? Yes, Sandro.
I can try, and this is somehow relates to the talk I gave just before this panel. So, and this is one of the issues that I mentioned. That's why we struggle to drive change, is because we go with a solution, right? So we are going to someone and say, hey, you need to adopt Agile. Hey, you need to adopt this architecture or that process. And and we put the onus on the person. We think that that person is not able to understand what you're saying, and is very comfortable to us to think, oh, those people are stupid because they cannot see this amazing idea that I have, right? So in order to convince someone, and that would be the same if someone was trying to convince you, they need to address the problems that you have. So we need to say, like, look, instead of going with a solution, we start from the problem. Say, look, we are seeing some inefficiencies in the company or some issues. Do you see the same ones, or do you see different ones? So you have a debate. It's like, what is keeping you awake at night? What are the bigger issues the biggest issues that you see in the company? And see if they match the ones that you see. And you find that intersection, or you highlight to them. So like, look, maybe they're a bit too far away, and say, well, look, in the day-to-day work that we do, we see all of those things. Are they things that you see as well, or you see in a different? Because if you don't have the conversation first, you have zero chances to convince them of anything, right? So maybe larger initiatives that they're going to put a lot of money for months or years, right? So that's where I would start from.
Cool.
The only way you can change people's mind is understanding their mind first, which means you need to see the world the way they see it, and you need to see to understand how they think, what they value, and from there is that you may have the chance to take the path together to change, but it's not the other way around.
Cool. Diego, I thought you want to say something or not?
Yeah, just a really short one. I agree with Sandro and Carlos said, and I would add that one of the challenges there is that your practice of doing whatever you do, creating products, developing software, whatever, is not the same as management practice, which is about deciding, which is about caring for the organization, to looking out for the future. So you have to bridge that by showing your practice, the pieces of your practice that you need to do to enable them to fund you. For instance, showing what it means to automate tests, or showing to them what it means to manage infrastructure somewhere, and also share with them how they practice impacts yours, how their decisions impact yours, how they must create enabling context for your practice. You know, that's something to focus on from my side.
Cool. Rebecca, you want to add something?
Only to say that when I need to translate things into their language, when I'm talking to someone else, and I'm doing a bad job of this because I can understand Spanish a little, but not speak it very well, is that it's hard to align things that are technical practices when someone's values are agile means let's just go fast and deliver. And if you're in a situation like that, rather than business agility, let's improve our outcomes, that's a good thing, because I think we have, but if someone just bought into agile as we're going faster, which I see, I can talk about how I measure things, or how I can deploy as faster, gives us feedback or whatever, and they go, but we need to build this infrastructure, and they'll go, oh, you're just being an engineer who likes to do things. So I'm not trying to put a downer on this, depress people, but you got to be careful. If people believe that what you're doing is just to go faster, then some of the things that you need to do as foundational, like we need to educate people in how to actually do these things, or how to test a microservice, anyway.
Okay, thank you. Sandro, yes, sorry.
So certainly, and my talk just before this one was exactly about that. Is on a strategic approach to software modernization. So how do we actually speak their language and overcome those barriers? So I totally agree. So even if they have a misconception that Agile is going fast, we can argue that they have a misconception of what Agile means, but what we cannot discard is that they have a need to go faster. Right? So this is important, because we know now where the problem is. They have a perception that they're not going fast enough. So if I forget about their interpretation of Agile and focus on their problem, then I can say, okay, so why do you think you are not going fast enough? And then we'll say a bunch of stuff. And in my talk before, has we ran a value stream mapping with all the business, right? So everyone involved. And we could, in a simple 2-hour, 3-hour exercise, map the entire process from idea to software in production and see where the bottlenecks are. It might be in the conceptualization of the idea, on the levels of approvals. Budgeting can be in the testing area, in the operations, or even in development and stuff, or the amount of bugs. So we could map that, and at that point, we say, this is where your bottlenecks in the process are, and we should act on that. Then we have a more sensible conversation, because we are addressing their needs in the right place.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Sandro. Just to let you all know, we have 11 more minutes, okay? Just to let you know. Okay, so Luri, your time.
Hi, guys. I see the conversation here is insightful and quite thought-provoking, so I'd like to share some thoughts I have on this topic, on this matter. Well, I guess here we have 2 points, because on the one hand, we have the organizations that is in sick of some best practices, right? So, but we need to be aware that, this is all about the mindset, and maybe it's something that we saw when a huge consultancy is selling some services to a huge enterprise. We should be aware that there is a great room for improvement, because it's not about just, you sell the service and then you have, we sold the service and then bum, we are agile. Well, we're not, and the enterprise is not as well. because it's important to educate people. So from my experience, it could be quite complicated when you would like to, to convince someone, especially from top management, to adopt agile mindset. It could be quite complicated because if a person is not open to change his or her mindset, could be quite difficult to convince, even if you have some data, or you deliver some presentation on what's the pros and maybe even cons of the adoption of agile mindset, agile methodologies, and so on, right? But on the other hand, I'd like to say that, regarding the future of agile software development, right? So I'd say that it's interesting because I guess here we have a room for improvement as well, because we need to educate more people on what the real agile is. It's not about the ceremonies, the bold practices, but it's more about how you think. So it's more about the mindset. And unfortunately, we see a lot of organization around the world that that have this problem, which is called a zombie scrum, right? No heart of agile beating nothing at all. So, and I think also it's interesting because I see agile from my point of view, maybe from my experience, it's not even about the software development. It could be transferred and adopted in many other industries. So I guess we have a huge room for improvement too. Okay.
Okay. So, but is there a question or just did you want
No,
to
it's
share
not.
your opinion?
It's not a question. It's just my point of view. So
Okay,
I
cool,
guess it was
cool.
interesting to
Yeah,
share it.
yeah, okay, great. Thank you for sharing that. Yuri, your time.
Hi guys. My question it's almost the same some that they already had. Luri talking a little bit about this. You guys also, but what wondering is that we live like a bubble in the community agility when you're talking about people, because the first value of Agile Manifest is people in their interactions. It's more important than other things like tools and process. So I want to wonder, in your guys' point of view, this is this separation between what we in a community thinking about the people, we need to enforce the people, energize the people, motivate them, and the industry and the companies do. There is some gaps between those things, like okay, we here we think about the rainbows and people are happy and we need to enforce the people, but when you came in the industry, the reality is a little bit different. How do you think, how do you see this gaps between those words?
Cool. Um, who takes the question?
The question makes me feel sad because when you go to a place and you start working, there's a culture that's already there. So if you're a new hire, you go in there, you can't change the world with your ideas right away. And sometimes, we like to say, oh, if you don't like the job, change the job. But in these days and times, we may not be able to do that quite realistically. So one of the things that I've been inspired by some folks that I know, again, shepherded their experience reports. And the person works in Nairobi, Kenya, and she was part of a team that they dismantled Agile. And then she had the job of helping for the 3 months to transition everyone into understanding what a coach or facilitator did as she and then she would no longer have a job. What she told me was very interesting, is that now she really recognizes when she's looking for a job, and she does have employment now, so is that I'm going to be very careful about what I perceive the culture of what I'm walking into is. And to also recognize that if you have a management change, that could change just like that. And so I advise people to look at how the people that you would be working with are doing their work. That's, you know, one thing that I would advise you.
Yes, Diego.
I agree completely with what Rebecca said. And I remember in the past going to a new place where I could work and asking to check out the space, the place, and the people, just to get a feel for the way things were going to go there. And today it might be more difficult, but you have to be very mindful of the language they use, what they ask you, not just what you answer, but what they ask you. And I would say one more thing is we need more caring people. Carlos brought this up. We need managers and coworkers who care, because we need people like that in the world, right? To keep this world better, to make it better. So I'd say some people no one will change. They will learn if they can on their own. But you'd be well advised, as Rebecca said, to be mindful of the leadership you'll get and the companions that you'll get on the road.
I like to advise people to to start up their own business, to work for yourself, or to create your own company. That's the way you learn a lot about. Because often I see tech people that are not reasonable in terms of feasibility. It's just not the way we can make such things. And if you have your own company, you will mature indeed, and you will have the ability to change the world in somehow. So that's this option. Not everybody thinks of it, but I encourage people to start their own business.
I thought, Carlos, that you were going to say that you wanted people to go to work with you, but anyway. Okay, Sandro, your time.
I very quickly, like Carlos, you have no idea how many times I think about that. So I wish people at least try to have their own business, and because it happened to me. I changed my mind about so many different things. When it's your own money, when it's your own responsibility to pay salaries, and you start understanding how certain people behave in other companies that before we thought of them, they were stupid or they could not get it. And as soon as you put yourself in their place and you understand the kind of issues that they need to do, like Cojuras has almost 100 employees now, right? So you have 3 offices, 100 employees. We are not a small company anymore. Today, I look back at some of the works that I had and how I was judging certain people, always thinking that I was the smart one and they were stupid, and I say, okay, I understand now. So it is quite an eye-opening when you are dealing with your own money and you need to pay salary. And then going back to what people say about individual interactions, we also need to remember that those things exist because we want to deliver something, right? So the goal is not to just, let's have a bunch of happy people and be a hippie community, right? At the end of the day, a lot of those things were put together because they wanted to achieve something in a more sustainable way and fast. So again, having deliverables and making sure that you are achieving something is the ultimate goal. And those are, so for me, agile practices and craftsmanship and DevOps, all of those things are a means to an end and not the end themselves.
Good, thank you. So we have 2 minutes. One last question. I don't know if we're going to have the time, but Daniel is asking your opinion about business agility. If you can see if it can fit with the agile software development, because in business there are many professions, different professions, and they have developed in different ways. So, is it possible to make business agility to fit with agile software development? Chan. So I'm going to answer to Daniel. Well, Daniel, we can talk about that later in another panel.
Sorry, I think Rebecca wanted to speak.
I'm sorry, I didn't see her. Sorry, Rebecca, you want to say something?
Okay. Well, only that business agility is hard for me to get my head around. Agile Alliance has been thinking about that quite a bit and having and I've been involved in meetings and discussions with people. And the thing is it seems to me that business agility is at a level that's looking at an organization and saying, how can it be more efficient in getting the outcomes it desires, figuring out what those outcomes are. And Agile software development is just a part of that. We fit in, but we're not going to shape all of the practices of business agility. We just have to be at the table.
Cool, great. Okay, so I think this is the end. We have no more time. So thank you, Rebecca, Diego, Sandro, and Carlos for being here, and all of you that participated. I hope you had fun with my bad jokes and with what the panelists said. I don't know, Andres, if you wanna end this meeting, say something else.
No, just to say thank you to all of you for being here. I think this was a really, really great panel. So that's it. Now we can let people go by themselves. I'm not
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you,
very much.
everyone.
It was a
an
pleasure.
honor. Yeah, thank you for
Bye-bye.
the
Thank
questions
you.
and the conversation.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys.
Stay good.